Turkey is charging forward with its planned offensive into eastern Syria, awaiting the withdrawal of American forces from the area. Turkish-backed fighters are already massing on the front line of a town held by Kurdish-led forces, which Turkey views as terrorist militants. The Kurds, which fought alongside the United States against ISIS, are up against forces on several fronts, with the Turks, ISIS and the Syrian army all serving as opposition forces. The Kurds once again abandoned in the Middle East, wondering where their protection will come from. US President Donald Trump announced last week America will withdraw all of its 2,000 forces in Syria, a move that will leave control of the oil-rich eastern third of Syria up for grabs. Meantime, Trump has accepted Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan's invitation to visit the country next year. That's according to a spokesperson for Turkey's leader. For further insight, Turkey analyst Yusuf Erim joins us from Istanbul, and with me in studio, senior Middle East correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim and international affairs correspondent Bianca Zanini. A well-rounded conversation. We'll start with you in Istanbul. Yusuf, great to have you. Now, Turkey will also face a much larger YPG force than it did in previous military operations in Afrin. What's the battle set to look like this time?
Well, when we look at General Dunford's comments, he was talking about training a 30 to 40,000 YPG force east of the Euphrates. Now, I doubt there's that many, but when we look at the Afrin Operation Olive Branch, it was a much smaller YPG force, probably somewhere in the range of 5,000 to maybe 7,000 to 8,000 fighters. We can now expect 2 to 3 times that east of the Euphrates. We can also expect the operation to start at any minute right now. There's reports of heavy troop movement coming in and out. We're seeing reports and the smaller brigades inside the Turkey-backed rebel group have announced that the operation has started, but this is all unconfirmed yet. The Turkish armed forces have not said that the operation has started, but like I said, it could happen at any minute. It looks like Manbij is going to be the first target. That's where the forces are amassing. So we can expect the offensive into Manbij any minute tonight, maybe tomorrow. It's going to happen sooner or later.
All right, we'll move into studio, Bianca, with this impending battle lying ahead. Yusuf saying any minute now it could begin. At least Turkish-backed troops could enter into eastern Syria. Israel and Turkey, of course, have entered into another war of words over the Kurds being and the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians this past week. We also know, though, that France has weighed in. Right. What are they going to do? Are they going to continue to support the Kurds?
Well, that's at least what they're saying right now. They're saying we are going to stay in Syria. They have about 1,000 ground troops in Syria and in Iraq. And we heard sharp criticism from Macron against President Trump, saying, you know, that an ally should be dependable and that he really regrets this decision. And we have to keep in mind that France is particularly sensitive and particularly focused on fighting the Islamic State on the ground, partially because of the series of terrorist attacks on French soil claimed by the Islamic State. So for France, they're saying it's in their interest to stay there and to keep fighting. Now we've got Turkey that's trying to sort of dismiss any statement from France, and we've got France and the US kind of taking the opposite approach in this. So we're seeing this international coalition against the Islamic State really up in the air right now. And what some people are saying, Donald Trump, again, prioritizing domestic policies, or other people saying that Donald Trump is not just about domestic policies, but also just about the most immediate interests for the U.S.
Let's talk about those immediate interests, Mohammed. Why would US President Donald Trump allow Turkey to have its way, especially when we know that the United States have been fighting alongside the Kurds against ISIS, and that let Turkey come in and, I suppose, launch an offensive on the very people that have been serving as US allies?
There's a host of reasons, Tracy, but I'm just going to focus on 2 major reasons here. The first one, we've all heard about the horrific murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and I think it has something to do with it. I think it even has a lot more than what people gives it in this decision. This is part of appeasing the Turkish government and making sure that the Turkish government does not go all the way in terms of calling for the head of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is President Trump's man in Saudi Arabia and also in the region. He has been the critical, point of support for the U.S. interests in the region and in trying to block the growing influence of Iran in the region. And the other reason is Russia. Turkey and Russia have seen their relationship get very close in the last couple of years as the Turkish and American relationship was, getting further apart, and Russia has sold the S-400 missile system to Turkey. We've seen more and more economic ties being built in between Russia and Turkey. We've seen also this cooperation between Ankara and Moscow in Syria. We've seen a number of meetings in Astana, Kazakhstan, in Sochi and elsewhere between Iran, Russia and Turkey. And this does not work to the interests of the United States. Once again, the U.S. is sacrificing a small ally for the benefit of appeasing and gaining the bigger one.
Yusuf, back to you in Istanbul. What's your take? Could this be part of the United States' push to get Turkey to back down over many of the points Mohammed raised there, but of course the one that stood out was the murder of Jamal Khashoggi?
When we look at Trump's previous statements, backing out, withdrawing from Syria has been on the table for a while for Trump. He wanted to withdraw earlier, but Brett McGurk and Mattis wouldn't allow him to. So, I mean, it's not like this was way before Khashoggi was murdered. This was way before October 2nd. So I fail to draw a comparison to. I think they're two completely different topics right now. And like I said, this was a decision that Trump had wanted to initiate for a while, and he feels that now that Islamic State is basically defeated and Turkey wants to address its security concerns, and there's a slow and ongoing rapprochement between Turkey and the United States, it's the best time to actually pull the trigger on this withdrawal.
All right, Mohammed, you wanted to add to that?
I agree that President Trump has made this a part of his campaign when he ran for the presidency a few years ago. But at the same time, he never acted upon it. We know that he listened to his advisors and national security advisors for a long time until this past week. And we know that President Trump is unpredictable, and that is part of this whole equation. But I want to add another reason, Tracy, if you allow me, to why President Trump acted at this time. Domestic politics has a lot to do with his decision. Let's not forget that the Mueller investigation was really gaining lots of momentum and coverage in the U.S. media, as well as his former attorney Michael Cohen, as well as other associates of his with their relationship to Russia and the Russian investigation. That all played part of President Trump's decision. But again, even though Khashoggi's issue has been on the table or in the media for the last 2-3 months, or since October 2nd, but it played a major role. Why? Because it affects the Saudi stability, the royal family stability, and that is something that is really major to President Trump.
All right, Yusuf, I want to go back to you. Of course, we've now been talking about motivation. Why would Trump allow this to happen? Let's look forward, though. How is this decision set to change the territorial makeup and the demographics of the region?
The way the withdrawal is carried out will determine its success. Now, if the U.S. just picks up and leave, it could turn into a disaster for Syria. The power vacuum created by an immediate exit will lead to all the non-state actors like Daesh and the YPG, and the major players like Russia, Turkey, the regime, and Iran, all scattering and trying to fill that void. So it would definitely escalate tension, but a highly coordinated withdrawal. And from the looks of it, there's going to be two important meetings between U.S. and Turkey, one on a military delegation level this week in Ankara, and one January 8th in Washington, D.C. between U.S. and Turkey officials. If there's a handover, I wouldn't even call it a military operation anymore. If there's a handover between U.S. and Turkey without allowing a power vacuum to occur, then it could be a very healthy operation going forward. It could be a very healthy decision. Turkey can provide a lot of benefit that the United States can't do by itself. For example, contain Iran. For example, administer Sunni Arab regions such as Raqqa, such as Deir ez-Zor, that the SDF-YPG has had a problem administering, And also, it has also been very successful fighting Daesh in the past. We can't forget Operation Euphrates Shield in 2016, when Turkey pushed Daesh off its borders, and during that operation neutralized more than 1,700 terrorists.